Hey, do do I know you? Yeah, of course you do. But do I really? Thank you to our Highland patrons, Strawbones, Rotor4765, Midnight Gem Lord, Sean, and Artgoon. And a very big thank you to our $25 patron, Alex Ice Rose. Now, we're having this breakdown / discussion on how Percival is kind of just the biggest walking mystery in Four Knights of the Apocalypse. Please leave your own thoughts on Percy's mystery in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, hit that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come with the channel. Also, you do a page down below. You support as low as $1 down a month. Thanks to the videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month and get the same perks and more. Now, let's hop into the discussion. What's up, guys? Hunter here, and here we are to talk about Percy of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. And despite how we've had 90 plus chapters with bro, we know everything and nothing about him, which is so unbelievably strange yet oddly familiar. So here's the thing, right? In the original series, a very similar situation happened. We knew Meliodas, his personality, his ideology, part of his goals, all that. We got to see it. But sitting down and actually thinking about it, we didn't actually know Meliodas till the mid 200s. Seriously, we didn't get the full story, the full plot behind who Meliodas was, his real ambitions, his real goals, all of his main priorities. We didn't know any of that till the mid 250s. That's how long it took for us to really understand Meliodas, our main character. Same thing with Elizabeth, right? Even if you want to say Elizabeth is the main character and Meliodas is just a secondary main character, we still didn't learn much about her all the way until the 250s. Remember, her being a proper goddess, despite it being hinted at for a long time, wasn't actually properly revealed until chapter 201, when Diane and King were sent back in time to go learn about it. So it's not out of Nakaba's wheelhouse to give us a whole ton of upfront character information, give us character connections, how the character feels, how the character would respond in a bunch of situations. Because we got to realize, we saw Meliodas go through a lot before we knew literally everything there was to know about Meliodas. We saw a lot of different situations, from when he was on top, when he was on bottom, when he was somewhere in between. We've seen it all with Meliodas way before we learned the full truth. And Percival is in the very same boat because Nakaba's used to it. He's pulled it on us before, and Percival's the very same way. We know pretty much everything about Percival and his personality. He's a nice, happy-go-lucky kid who wants to explore the world and love and protect his friends. That is it. That's literally, if we were to describe Percival's character, you could do it with that one sentence, and you wouldn't be missing out on much. However, despite that, Percival, especially in comparison to his contemporaries in his fellow titular group, the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, he is just an enigma of the ultimate degree. We know more about every other Knight of the Apocalypse, despite them all being properly introduced way after Tristan. The closest Knight that got introduced was Lance in chapter 48, I believe. Sure, we had Sin introduced as early as chapter 2, but Sin and Lance are two characters that, while technically the same, I count as different just because of how differently they are treated within the narrative. But think about it, really think about it. We know more about Lance, Tristan, and Gawain and all of their backgrounds than we really know about Percy. We know exactly where Gawain's magic comes from. We know her hometown. We know everything about her. Except for, obviously, the whole Granny and Grandpa situation, which is a big mystery on her own. Don't get me wrong, she definitely has a mystery to her, too. Tristan, the entire previous series was the story of his parents. We have literally every single car fact that is humanly possible for us to have. I think it's entirely reasonable, if you were to ask me, that we know a lot about Tristan and his background. We know so much about him and all three clans he's part of. We have so much background detail on Tristan that I think if you were to sit a real Seven Deadly Sins fan down, we could probably teach a college course on it. No lie, we could make a whole college course of curriculum just based on one of the three clans he's a part of, not to talk of all three and the entire series that his parents come from. Even Lance, we know a lot about Lance. Sure, he also is like steeped in a very big mystery. What happened to him in the world beyond? Bro just hard disappeared for 3 years and didn't tell it to essentially his only brother figure, which is Tristan. Obviously, that is a little bit shady. That's a little bit mysterious. And of course, his power level is also a little bit mysterious. Like, what the heck? How is bro so strong? But in spite of that, we know a whole lot. But now, especially with the reveal of Deodra and Ironside's backstory on how they got to Camelot, everything's up in the air now. We used to say Percival was from Camelot, because, it seemed like it was the case. His dad was a knight under Arthur. It was established that Anne's mom was a knight under Arthur, so obviously they had to be from Camelot, right? No. They're from some far-off land, and they had to go to Camelot. Okay, so where's Percy actually from? Like, where does he come from? Because now that we know it's not Camelot, he could come from pretty much anywhere. Like, it's established in the Seven Deadly Sins world that Britannia is not the only place. There are other lands. Nanashi supposedly came from other lands, after being a goddess for a while, so they do exist. Does Percy have connections to these other lands? Does he not? Is he just a dude from a random village? Now we don't know. The one assumption we thought we knew about Percy, in terms of his background, no idea now. That's entirely mysterious. We know where every other knight comes from. We have their hometown and their ancestry. We do not have that for Percy. Kind of strange. Percy's magic. What's up with it? Like, legitimately, what is up with it? It seems so different. Like, hero type magic is something that has existed within the verse before. Like, legitimately, pretty much every one of the sins had hero type magic in some degree. Like, you can argue things like creation and true magic aren't technically hero type magic, but in terms of their whole kits, everyone had some sort of variation of hero type magic, especially people like King, people like Bond, even Escanor to a degree, all had hero type magic. But Percy's hero type magic is something different. Like, different, like legitimately outside of the literal immunity to physical and or magical attacks and or straight up reality warping, Percy's magic is the best. And it's no competition. But why? Is it natural? Is it literally just genetics? Like the luck of the draw, Percy just happened to get the best, coolest, most amazing, legendary, cool, crazy, slap your knee power of the world? He just happened to get it? I don't know. Seems a little bit strange. Seems a little bit mysterious. Like, how did bro just get this? Why did destiny choose him? Every other knight is from a prestigious bloodline and or got the power of a deity incarnated into them while also being from a prestigious bloodline. Every single one of our other main characters are royals. Tristan, the Prince of Leonis. Lancelot, the Prince of Benwick. Gawain, the niece of the very king of chaos. All of these people are important. Like, inherently important. Like, remove the Four Knights prophecy and they all had very important lives they were going to live regardless. But Percy? I don't know. He just seems like a rando. Like, legitimately. No real specifically strong background. None of his family even existed in the previous series. Nothing of him was really built up or established. He kind of just showed up one day on our pages and said, hey, I'm the main character. You have to deal with this now. And don't get me wrong, I like that, but it's strange. It's weird. It's out there. Like, you're telling me this guy is this powerful by chance? By random luck? I don't know. Seems a bit strange. You know what else seems a bit strange? We don't know his mom. And admittedly, we don't know a lot of characters' moms, but Percy seems off in terms of, like, his survivability, his viability, his strength. His whole biology seems a bit weird and wacky. And Nakaba, despite saying Percival is human, has hinted multiple times within the narrative that Percival may not really be human. Like, him being human may be true from a certain point of view, in the same way that Lance and Tristan are technically human. But may not be. And it raises the question. His mama, what was she? Where did she come from? What did she do? Was she the reason that her son ended up being so unbelievably cracked? I don't know. Once again, we know a lot about Percival and himself and his personality, but in terms of his history and his connections to previous characters, they're non-existent. Percival does not exist, and his whole entire bloodline really does not exist before chapter 1 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse. And that leaves him in this, once again, very mysterious spot. Speaking of mysterious things about Percy, the whole other side of his magic. I made a whole video talking about how weird Despair Percy is, because it is just like flat out weird. His power, his potency, his ability, his durability, all of it. It's just wacky, wild, and crazy. And we get no explanation for it. It's just entirely vague on what that was. It gets written off mostly as a joke, and then we haven't touched on it since. And that was over 30, nearly 40 chapters ago at this point, and we still haven't touched on it. Seems pretty strange. And I think that's the general thing. Percy is a character that Nakawa seems to be building to with something. Everything that's been surrounding Percy on a narrative, background, and historical front all seems to be kind of strange, for lack of a better term. And I ain't talking about no Hugo. That's how weird Percy seems to be. It feels like Nakaba just in the background is just slowly building up to certain things. Like he's been building up to a couple reveals. The reveal of Merlin, obviously Guinevere and stuff like that. There have been a lot of reveals happening recently that drastically impact the story, and I feel like we're kind of building to one with Percy. Mainly because it all seems too convenient and strange for nothing to be afoot, nothing to be running amok in the background. Everything seems a little bit off in just that special way that has got me stroking the beard and wondering what's really going on. Because it's okay to have mysterious main characters. In fact, I encourage it. But the question is, why be so serious? Or no, why be so mysterious? Unless you're hiding something from us, Nakaba. And I think there is definitely a lot to hide with Percy. And I think it makes him all the better. Because the thing is, right, Percy on his base character alone is good enough, don't get me wrong. But unlike a lot of the other knights, without all this mystery behind him, we don't necessarily have much to stay invested on a longevity front with Percy. Sure, we definitely do have all of his friends who I believe are going to perish in unbelievably gruesome ways for Percy's character development, but at the moment, I think a good way to keep the readers engaged and keep us scratching and stroking our beards is to have Percy be this mysterious on that secondary level. Because the thing is, Four Knights works on a very basic level. You can just read Four Knights without thinking about it too much, and it's still good. It's still great, in fact, I'd say. It has its moments where I wonder if Nakaba needs to go to jail, but regardless of those, it still is a pretty solid story just on basic reading. But I think those extra layers where you start to look further and further is what keeps people coming back. At least I can say it keeps me coming back. And involving that with the main character, especially someone of Percy's caliber, who, unlike Meliodas in the original series, didn't necessarily seem to have any sort of mysterious side to him. Like, Meliodas in the original series, for a majority of the series, is very, like, off-brand shady. Like, he is a very straightforward, nice, cool, clean-cut guy, but at the same time, you always looked at him funny, because it felt like he's purposefully hiding something. Like, reread the original parts of Seven Deadly Sins. Like, go back to, like, chapter 20 to chapter 200. Meliodas is a very mysterious kind of dude. From all the interactions he has with people he trusts a lot. Like, remember the King and Meliodas interaction in the training cave. Meliodas was specifically holding back information and questioning and gaslighting King there because he was going out of his way to hide stuff that was relevant to his character. Meanwhile, with Percy, it feels like he's not necessarily attempting to hide anything, but he is still a walking enigma, which is strange. Like, I don't think it can be done easily, but Nakaba managed to do it. We know so much, but so little about our main character. And I think all these hypothetical reveals that we may or may not be building to could be extremely exciting. I think that's another beautiful thing about Percy being so mysterious. It may just never get answered, and I couldn't even really be mad. Which is crazy to say. Usually when things are built up, I get a little bit annoyed if they aren't followed through. They may make me get a little bit serious. But with something like this, I may just be reading too deep. We have everything with Percy at face value. He's a cool, kind 16-year-old. What's up with that? But at the same time, there's this mystery and intrigue that surrounds him, his past, his history, his biology, his magic, both sides of it. Everything is there for a good concrete mystery, but at the same time, you have the surface level stuff. You have the stuff that makes you go, oh, huh, intriguing. At the same time, you have, oh, I love Percy. He's such a little dumb, stupid, bubblegum idiot. Like, he has that beautiful dichotomy that I think is great and very hard to write. So I give credit to Nakaba for producing it so well, to the point where half of me is like, Percy, he's got to have something cooking right now. There's got to be something shady about him. There's no way Percy's just a regular dude. I refuse to believe it. Yeah, at the same time, I'm also like, Percy's just a lovable dum-dum. Nothing can happen to Percy. He can't be anything weird or special or anything like that. He's just a nice guy. And I think that dichotomy is really, really cool. And I'm very excited to see how long it lasts. Because the thing about Percy and his mystery is that I think it won't be answered for a while. Once again, just basing it on the original series. Nakaba in Four Knights has this pattern so far that I've noticed, where he'll take a lot of aspects that are similar to the original series, and he will slice them apart, throw them in a pan, and mix it up and cook it up in an entirely different way they did in the original series. And this Percival mystery, this Percival background mystery, feels like something like that. I don't think we're going to get answers at the bare minimum until we reach Camelot. And that's not happening, at least in my mind, for a bare minimum another 100 chapters. Which may sound bonkers. It may sound a little bit crazy for me to think that we aren't going to reach Camelot in 100 chapters, but you gotta think, if anything is like the opening part of the story, where we had, 50 chapters of setup until we reached Leonis, and then Leonis itself was like 40 chapters long, and we're splitting up the groups, I don't know. I could kind of see us not necessarily hitting anything too major on Percy's history for a while, but still consistently dropping hints. And I think that in the long term is going to do Four Knights really, really good on an engagement level when it comes to Percy as the main character. Because the thing is, when you're writing a main character, I think you always want your readers or the consumers of the story you're creating to be a bit on edge, feel like they got to stay on their toes to pick up every little last bit of character information and making sure that the understanding of the character is actually accurate. And by carefully walking that tightrope between giving enough information, giving enough personality, giving enough reason for the reader to enjoy said character, and at the same time leave just enough information out, leave just enough character out, leave just enough likability out that the character can develop and go on without being a static character. It's a very fine line to walk, and a lot of creators will lean too hard into one or the other. They'll either make the character too obvious from the start, so when it feels like after a 300 chapter journey the character is the exact same as they were at the beginning, and or they'll lean into the mystery so hard that it just feels like you aren't learning anything about the character or anything about that, and thusly it disengages. You have those two extremes, but Percival right now is walking that fine tightrope. He's directly in the middle. He's a character that we know enough about that we can be invested in him, his journey, his goals, and his dreams, but at the same time we don't know enough about his history, his powers, his true origins, all that, to the point where we're consistently engaged. And I'm overall excited to see where Nakaba takes this line. Because the thing is, he could jump off it at any point. Like, notably, a lot of other Seven Deadly Sins characters have their histories and backgrounds revealed a lot earlier. Diane, I'm pretty sure, gets her entire backstory clarified before the 100 chapter mark. Like, we get the flashback with Dolores and Matrona and all that way earlier than we do anything with Meliodas, heck, anything with King, even though King was also pretty early on too. That's the thing. He could just drop it, because it's not like Percival's isolated in this mystery. Every other character within the Four Knights group also has their own mystery, from Gawain and the situation with her grandparents and her relationship to Arthur and her father, to Tristan and his relationship with his own history, that while we know a whole bunch about it, we could teach whole college semesters worth of information on demon and goddess history. Tristan doesn't know anything about that. Tristan's Carfax are not fully updated, and top that off with his own mysterious struggle against his darkness and his other half and stuff like that. We definitely have a whole lot on the floor for him. And once again, same with Lancelot, he has a whole ton of mystery behind him too, from his power to his origins to what happened to him to where his future is going. There's a ton of mystery in Four Knights with his titular characters alone. So hypothetically, Percival and his mystery could be sacrificed as nothing. He just happened to be born super duper strong with the best magic and all that, and Varghese just happened to kidnap the goat and ended up sending him off with him to live alone on a mountain forever. However, with that being the case, I don't think Nakaba's going to do it. I don't think he's going to throw Percy's mystery away. I think we're in too deep at this point. Too much needs to be explained about Percy for us to just sweep it under the rug. Like, think about it. Picture it. 200 chapters later, or wow, we aren't even at the hundreds yet. So maybe like 250 chapters later, the series has wrapped up. Percival's now, 23? The time skip happened, all that. And we sit down and reflect after learning everything about Tristan, Lance, Gawain, Donnie, everyone else. And then Percival is just still a walking mystery. Do you think that'd be satisfying? Do you think people would praise that? Do you think I would praise it? No. So I do think that in the long run, we're going to be learning more and more about Percy. I think in the general order, we're probably going to learn about his lineage first. We already have half of it in Ironside, but I think we're going to learn a little bit more about it as time progresses. With the Other being introduced to the narrative, we know that the hypothetical whole mother situation is naturally complicated in one way or another, so I think we are going to learn about that first. Then I'm assuming we're going to learn something about the both sides of his magic. Then I'm going to assume we're going to learn something about any other mysteries left over besides those. And I'm excited. I'm very intrigued because the way that Four Knights has been progressing, it's made Percy such a joy to watch and read every single week. But at the same time, he's also a character who isn't just enjoyable to watch and read on the face value, but he has so much surface level stuff, or beneath the surface level stuff, that could be interesting. So overall, I'm very excited to see where Nakaba decides to take our little Hope Boy, or our little Despair Child. There are so many different directions he could take. I think the mystery of Percy is ever intriguing. However, that's what I think. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure the all notifications also miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a page down below. It's probably so as one, count them one, down on links to videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.